The Arab millionaire's babies wouldn't stop crying. For 4 hours straight, the 6-month-old twins turned the luxurious VIP lounge at Dallas International Airport into an auditory torture chamber. Malik al-Zahrani, a 42-year-old oil tycoon and one of the richest men in the Middle East, held his children with the desperation of someone who had completely lost control of the situation. "Mr. al-Zahrani, other VIP passengers are complaining," said Rebecca Morrison, manager of the exclusive lounge, her tense voice masking her irritation. Malik looked around the first-class lounge and saw only angry faces. Executives covered their ears with noise-canceling headphones. A Texas socialite stared at him with murderous eyes. "I've tried everything," his voice came out hoarse with exhaustion. "Bottles, toys, music, pediatrician via video call. Nothing works." The billionaire who ruled oil empires was completely defeated by 2 6-month-old babies. His wife, Amina, had fallen ill at the last minute, and he had to travel alone with the twins. His flight had been delayed, prolonging the nightmare. His arms trembled with exhaustion. Sweat dripped from his forehead. Zayn and Tariq cried in alternating shifts, as if they had agreed not to let their father breathe. What Malik didn't know was that on the other side of the glass wall of the VIP lounge, in the terminal's common area, a 34-year-old woman was watching the whole situation with a knowledge that could solve everything in minutes. But first, she would have to overcome something much more difficult, crossing the invisible barrier that separates the invisible from the privileged. Diana Carter was sitting on the cold floor of the terminal, leaning against a pillar near the entrance to the VIP lounge. At 34, she had lost everything: her job, her apartment, her dignity. 6 months ago, she was a nurse at a public hospital until she was unfairly fired. With no money for rent, the fall was quick. Now she slept in shelters when she could get a spot, or at the airport itself when she couldn't. The airport was a good place to beg. Passengers in a hurry sometimes threw coins without looking. But Diana wasn't just a beggar. Before she lost everything, she had worked for 7 years in a high-risk maternity ward. She had grown up caring for 5 younger siblings, 3 of whom were premature twins with severe colic and reflux. Her eyes revealed a serenity unusual for someone living on the streets, the kind of calm that only exists in those who have weathered much worse storms. Diana immediately recognized the twins' crying pattern through the glass wall. It wasn't hunger. It was silent reflux combined with intestinal colic. She had treated dozens of cases like this. When she got up and walked toward the entrance to the VIP room, the security guard immediately blocked her way. "No access, ma'am. First-class passengers only." Diana pointed through the glass. "Those babies are suffering from reflux. I'm a nurse. I can help." The security guard looked Diana up and down. Clothes that hadn't been washed in days, unkempt hair, the smell of someone who hadn't bathed, a torn backpack at her feet. "Of course you're a nurse," he said sarcastically. "Don't try to use these children as an excuse to come in and disturb the VIP passengers." Rebecca Morrison, the manager, appeared behind him. "Is there a problem here?" The security guard pointed at Diana. "This beggar is trying to get into the VIP lounge." Rebecca looked at Diana with the kind of disgust that well-dressed people reserve for the invisible. "Security, escort this woman out of the terminal. Immediately." Diana stood still, motionless, as if guarding a secret too powerful to be ignored. Through the glass, she saw Malik clearly on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Then something happened that would change everything. Malik staggered through the VIP lounge door, the twins in his arms, and shouted desperately into the crowded terminal, "Please. Someone who knows how to take care of babies. I'll pay $20,000 to anyone who can get my children to stop crying." The entire terminal stopped. Hundreds of people looked at the Arab billionaire in public despair. The silence was broken only by the continuous sobs of Zayn and Tariq. No one moved. Rebecca Morrison turned pale, realizing that the situation had escalated into a public scandal. Diana stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence. "I can help your children, sir." Malik looked at her, saw her dirty clothes, her unkempt hair. His expression went from hope to skepticism in seconds. Rebecca quickly stepped forward. "Mr. al-Zahrani, please don't pay any attention to this person. She's a beggar who stands here at the terminal asking for money." The security guard already had his hand on his radio. "I'm going to call airport police to remove her." Diana stood her ground, her eyes fixed on Malik. Your children have silent reflux. The position you're holding them in is making it worse. I worked in high-risk maternity care for 7 years before I lost everything. I know exactly what to do. If you're enjoying this story of courage against prejudice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. What happens next will prove that wisdom has no fixed address, social class, or appearance. The entire terminal watched the scene in silence. Malik Al-Zahrani looked at Diana, then at his children, who were crying more and more weakly, a sign that terrified him more than their loud crying. Complete exhaustion. Rebecca Morrison stepped forward, positioning herself between the billionaire and the beggar like a human shield. Mr. Al-Zahrani, you can't be seriously considering this, her voice was laden with alarm. This woman is homeless and spends her days begging for money in this terminal. She probably has diseases, lacks hygiene, and could be dangerous. The security guard had already called for backup on the radio. 2 airport police officers appeared in the hallway, walking toward the group. But something in Diana's gaze made Malik hesitate. It wasn't desperation for money. It was knowledge. Certainty. That impossible serenity of someone who really knew what they were doing. How do you know it's reflux? Malik asked, his voice wavering between hope and skepticism. Because their crying isn't continuous, Diana replied calmly, ignoring the approaching officers. They cry loudly, stop for a few seconds as if they're choking, then cry even louder. That's acid coming back up the esophagus. The upright position you're using makes it worse. They need to be in a modified prone position, head slightly tilted down, gentle pressure on the abdomen. Rebecca let out a cruel laugh. Did you hear that? Now we have a homeless doctor. Officers, please remove this woman before she causes any more embarrassment. One of the officers touched Diana's arm. Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave. Diana didn't move, maintaining eye contact with Malik. Have you noticed that after they cry a lot, sometimes a little sour milk comes out of their mouths? That they arch their backs as if trying to escape something? That the crying gets worse after feeding? Malik blinked, processing. That was exactly it. Every detail Diana described was accurate. How do you know all this? Because I cared for 3 premature babies with the same condition, Diana replied, her voice breaking slightly. My brothers. When the doctors said there was nothing more they could do, I spent 6 months learning everything there was to know about severe infant reflux. Then I worked 7 years in the neonatal ICU at Presbyterian Hospital. Until, she paused, swallowing her shame. Until I was unfairly fired for a mistake made by another nurse who blamed me. What the privileged people around her didn't know was that 3 years ago, Diana Carter had been nominated for Nurse of the Year for saving 5 premature babies during an emergency when the hospital's oxygen system failed. Her photo had been on the front page of the local newspaper. But a false accusation, a corrupt supervisor protecting a relative, and everything fell apart. Unable to prove her innocence, with no references and no money for a lawyer, the fall was inevitable. A businessman in the crowd pulled out his cell phone and started recording. Others did the same. The scene was about to go viral, Malik knew that. But for the first time in 4 hours, he felt something other than despair. He felt possibility. Step back please, Malik said to the police officers, his voice regaining its authority. He looked at Diana. If I let you try and something goes wrong with my children. The threat hung in the air, unfinished but clear. Nothing will go wrong, Diana said simply. But I'm going to need you to trust me for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. Rebecca was horrified. Mr. Al-Zahrani, I implore you to reconsider. Our legal responsibility, the safety of the passengers, this could be an elaborate scam. The billionaire ignored her completely. He took a step toward Diana, still holding the twins, who were now crying more softly, their voices becoming hoarse. 2 minutes, Malik said firmly. But you don't touch them. Just tell me what to do. Diana nodded. It was more than she had expected. First, sit down in that chair over there. You need to be relaxed because they sense your tension. Malik obeyed, sitting heavily in a chair in the terminal. Dozens of people watched, cell phones recording, waiting to see if the beggar was a fraud or if something impossible was about to happen. Now take Zayn, the one on the left, and lay him face down on your left forearm. Head in the palm of your hand, belly on your arm. Hold him firmly but gently. Malik followed the instructions, awkwardly at first. Zane continued to cry. Rebecca crossed her arms, a satisfied smile beginning to form. Now make very slow circular movements with your right hand on his back. And breathe deeply, slowly. He will follow your breathing rhythm. Malik began the circular movements, forcing himself to breathe deeply despite his anxiety. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Rebecca was about to intervene when Zane let out a long, loud burp. Then another. And then, like magic, the crying stopped. The baby began to breathe regularly, his eyes blinking heavily. The terminal erupted in murmurs. Cameras frantically recorded the scene. Malik looked at Diana with an expression of pure amazement. The silence that followed was broken only by Zane's soft breathing, finally at peace in his father's arms. Malik looked at his son, then at Diana, his eyes shining with tears of relief and gratitude. "It works," he murmured, almost to himself. "It really works." Rebecca Morrison was pale, her mouth open in silent shock. The airport police officers lowered their hands, clearly unsure how to proceed. The crowd that had formed was completely silent, witnessing something no one expected to see. "Now Tariq," Diana said calmly, as if she were in an operating room and not in the middle of an airport terminal surrounded by security guards. Same technique. Right forearm, belly down, circular movements. Malik carefully transferred Zane to the seat next to him, where the baby continued to sleep, and picked up Tariq, who was crying desperately. Following Diana's instructions, he positioned the second twin. Circular movements. Deep breaths. 45 seconds later, Tariq let out a series of burps, spit up a little sour milk onto a diaper that Diana quickly positioned, and his crying turned into soft sobs before stopping completely. His eyes closed almost immediately. The terminal erupted in applause. Dozens of people clapped, whistled, recorded. Malik al-Zahrani, one of the most powerful men in the Middle East, sat in the middle of the Dallas airport with his 2 sons finally sleeping peacefully, tears streaming freely down his face. "You saved my children," he said to Diana, his voice breaking. "You saved them when doctors paid thousands of dollars failed." Rebecca Morrison realized, too late, that she had made the most catastrophic mistake of her career. She had tried to expel the only person who could resolve the crisis, and now hundreds of witnesses had recorded everything. A businessman in the crowd shouted, "That manager tried to kick her out. She called the police." Why? Because she wasn't dressed well enough. Other passengers began to murmur in agreement. The mood quickly turned against Rebecca. "Mr. al-Zahrani, I was just following security protocol," Rebecca tried to defend herself, her voice high-pitched with panic. "We had no way of knowing she was really a nurse." Diana finally spoke, her calm voice cutting through the noise. "You didn't try to find out. You looked at me and decided I was worthless because I don't have a home. Because my clothes are dirty. Because I don't fit your idea of who deserves to be heard." Malik stood up carefully, the twins sleeping in his arms. He looked at Rebecca with an expression she recognized immediately, the look of someone accustomed to destroying careers with a single word. "What is your full name?" Rebecca swallowed hard. "Rebecca Morrison, sir. Senior manager of the VIP lounge." "Well, Ms. Morrison, you tried to prevent someone from helping my children based purely on appearance. You called security. You tried to have this woman arrested." His voice grew colder. "How many other people have you treated this way? How many other people with real knowledge, with real skills, have you dismissed because they didn't look right to you?" One of the airport police officers, a black man in his 50s, stepped forward. "Mr. al-Zahrani, for the record, I hesitated too. I saw a homeless woman and assumed the worst. But this lady," he gestured toward Diana, "just taught me a lesson I will carry with me for the rest of my life." He extended his hand to Diana. "Thank you for reminding me that judging people by their appearance is the quickest way to lose something precious." Malik turned to Diana, carefully transferring the babies to a double stroller that an assistant had rushed over with. "What is your full name?" Diana hesitated, unaccustomed to being treated like a person, let alone by a billionaire. "Diana Carter, sir." "Diana Carter," Malik repeated, taking out his cell phone. In 4 hours, pediatricians consulted via video call failed. An airport manager tried to kick her out. Security guards tried to arrest her. "But you had knowledge that is worth more than all the money I paid for medical consultations," he typed quickly. I'm transferring $50,000 to your account right now. No, wait, he paused. 100,000. And that's just the beginning. Diana felt her legs buckle. $100,000. She couldn't process the number. Sir, I can't. Malik raised his hand, cutting her off. You can and will accept it. But there's more. You said you were unfairly fired from Presbyterian Hospital. Diana nodded, unable to speak. I know the chairman of the board. David Chun. We play golf together. Malik was typing as he spoke. I will personally ensure that your situation is reviewed. If you were wronged, it will be corrected. If not, he looked at her intently, my foundation is always looking for exceptional healthcare professionals for our clinics in underserved communities. People with your knowledge and compassion. The crowd around them applauded again. Rebecca Morrison was in tears now, realizing that not only was her career over, but that the viral video of this scene would follow her forever. Malik turned to her one last time. Ms. Morrison, I will speak personally with the airport director. What you did today was pure discrimination. Diana Carter deserves an apology. Rebecca opened her mouth, but no convincing apology came out. Just a pathetic whisper, I'm sorry. Diana looked at the woman who had tried to humiliate her, expel her, arrest her. And instead of anger, she felt only exhaustion. I don't hold a grudge, Diana said simply. But I hope you learn that value has no price tag or fixed address. 3 months later, Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas was holding an extraordinary ceremony. In the main auditorium, more than 200 people gathered to witness something rare, the institution publicly admitting a devastating mistake and correcting an injustice. Diana Carter sat in the front row, wearing a brand-new immaculate medical uniform. Beside her, her 5 younger siblings, including the now completely healthy 7-year-old twins, held a handmade banner, Our sister is our hero. Their mother, Evelyn Carter, finally able to take time off from one of her 3 jobs thanks to the financial assistance Diana had received, wept quietly with pride. In the VIP front row, Malik Al-Zarani held Zayn and Tariq, now 9 months old and perfectly healthy. The babies who had once cried uncontrollably now smiled and babbled happily, reaching out their hands every time they saw Diana. His wife Amina applauded enthusiastically. Dr. James Morrison, chairman of the hospital board, approached the microphone. 3 months ago, this hospital committed a grave injustice. Diana Carter was fired based on false accusations made by a supervisor who was protecting an incompetent family member. Our investigation has revealed the truth. He paused. Not only was Diana innocent, she had covered up the mistakes of others to protect patients. She sacrificed her own reputation to prevent vulnerable babies from suffering. And we punished her for her integrity. His voice broke. Diana, on behalf of the entire institution, I beg your forgiveness. We offer you not only the restoration of your job, but a promotion to supervisor of the neonatal ICU, with 3 months back pay. The auditorium erupted in applause. Diana stood up, her legs trembling. When she reached the stage, Dr. Morrison held out his hand, but she surprised him with a hug. Thank you for having the courage to admit your mistake. Malik also took the stage, carrying the twins. Diana Carter didn't just save my children that day at the airport. She saved my humanity. She reminded me that judging people by their appearance is the most dangerous form of blindness. He turned to the audience. The Al-Zarani Foundation is establishing a permanent program, full scholarships for medical and nursing school for people who are homeless or extremely vulnerable. The program will be called the Diana Carter Project. Tears streamed freely down Diana's face. 3 months ago, she had been sleeping on the cold floor of the airport, invisible to the world. Today, she was being honored by hundreds of people, with her career restored and a program bearing her name helping others. A journalist raised his hand. Diana, what would you say to Rebecca Morrison now, the manager who tried to fire you? Diana thought carefully. I would say thank you. People like her taught me that obstacles are just opportunities in disguise. Her prejudice created the moment that changed my life. I hold no grudges. I hold gratitude for having survived strong enough to be here today. The video of the scene went viral with over 80 million views, becoming a case study in corporate training on implicit bias. Rebecca Morrison had lost her job and now worked in a supermarket earning minimum wage, living the reality she once despised. But the real transformation was not Rebecca's downfall. It was Diana's rise and what it meant for thousands of invisible people. The police officer who almost arrested Diana became an instructor for a new training program called Look Beyond Appearances, sharing the story of how his own prejudices almost caused him to commit a terrible injustice. Diana was invited to speak at medical conferences, not only about infant reflux, but about how the healthcare system fails the most vulnerable. Malik al-Zahrani became one of the biggest advocates for reform in the treatment of homeless people, using his influence and fortune to create real reintegration programs. Zayn and Tariq grew up hearing the story of how a woman the world had discarded saved their lives when no one else could. After the ceremony, Diana returned to the apartment she could now afford. It wasn't luxurious, but it had walls, a bed, a hot shower. Things she had learned never to take for granted again. Her brothers were all there, celebrating, laughing, alive and healthy because of the care she had given them years ago. Her cell phone rang. It was a message from a woman named Jennifer, who had seen the viral video. "I'm a nurse and was unfairly fired 2 years ago. I live in my car. Seeing your story gave me hope that I can come back. Thank you for reminding me that I still have value." Diana replied immediately, connecting Jennifer with the resources of the Al-Zahrani Foundation. Because that was the real lesson. It wasn't about revenge against Rebecca Morrison. It was about remembering that every invisible person on the streets carries knowledge, experience, value that the world wastes out of sheer arrogance. Diana Carter slept on the airport floor, but she carried within her the knowledge that saved 2 lives. How many other Dianas are out there, invisible, ignored, wasted because they don't fit the mold that society expects? The best response to prejudice is not anger or revenge. It is excellence so undeniable that it forces the world to reconsider every assumption about who deserves to be seen, heard, valued. Sometimes all we need is a chance to show that true value has no address, social class, or clean clothes. If this story of overcoming adversity and justice touched you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that greatness exists in the most unexpected places. Share in the comments. Have you ever judged someone by their appearance and then found out you were completely wrong?